tapped or clicked in to College Volleyball Weekly on Viral Volley Media. Now here's your host, Rob on mic.
Good day, everyone, and welcome to episode 282 of College Volleyball Weekly Men's Top 20. This will probably be the season finale 1.0 because a 2.0 version with Jay hopefully will come about, but we got to work that deal out. We got Brad Rostrader of UC San Diego, Theo Edwards of CSUN, and Dan Friend of Lewis University. I know it's been probably 2 Mondays since the national championship match, but we're going to talk about it anyways. And all the top news, at least in our eyes, that we've seen so far this season. There's no we're going to hit on anything, but some of the top news that we've seen this year. So I wanted to throw this out there first to all of you. Thoughts on the national championship match as Long Beach State claims another national championship, and Moni Nikolov and crew, as well as Alan Knipe and his coaching staff, doing a great job to close out the season strong. But wanted to get the coaches' thoughts on what we saw a couple Mondays ago. Anyone jump in? Oh, Dan's just smiling. He's got something big in the hopper. He's waiting for the closeout.
I mean, Dan was in person, so he should go first.
All right. Well, I think watching the whole tournament, the first day on Thursday, ultimately, I think it took teams a little bit to settle in. You could kind of see that. Like, there was some great volleyball, but there was also some ugly volleyball, and you got teams that are traveling and things like that. And so, but you just talk about the championship match. I mean, I thought Long Beach came out, pretty aggressive and getting after it. And UCLA was in a spot to respond in game 2, and they made a couple errors, and Long Beach made a couple plays, and then Moni goes back and does what you've seen him do all year. It's like 18-20, he goes back and he ends up scoring 2 or 3 points right there, and it just really kind of flips the momentum and the energy, and and you could see that going into game 3. And game 3 they just jumped all over him, and so UCLA was really good in the semis. I think they hit something like 700 on the BIC, and 38% of their balls were set to the BIC. It was pretty impressive in that match, and they just couldn't find the rhythm that they were in the night before, and partly due to how Long Beach was playing and some service pressure, but at the same time, they just didn't look as clean as we've seen them from that standpoint. But Moni's certainly a guy who can change the dynamic of a game, which we've all seen all year. So that was no shocker. I think to see him really elevate to another level in some situations there was pretty impressive. And that's with Long Beach having an injury or two. So they were, trying to figure out a couple pieces themselves, as we saw with Hawaii and a few other teams as they were working through the
Yep. Anyone else?
Yeah, from my end, it was right, like overall, seeing UCLA really struggle to get production from their kind of hybrid 3 outside hitter offense, getting production from Rama or Kelly out of the back row on the D ball played a huge factor, where just when Rowan was in the front row, the Long Beach was able to be real aggressive, bunching and having their left side blockers be able to help with the quick and the BIC. And we saw some of the blocks from especially K-Dev against the opposite throughout the night. And I thought that played a huge piece within it. So that was, to me, that was one of the big factors. And then you ultimately have the serving by Moni in the second set when UCLA was up 2018, I believe is what it was. And I think the thing that stands out, there's 2 with Moni's serve, especially where, like at least speaking from our experience, and Theo, you probably, or really everyone probably has some experiences, like when we're going into it, we're figuring out what rotations or what spots we did not want to be in with a server like that, and it's with Moni and then with Heno as kind of the 2 guys that we'd kind of work backwards from there and at least for us, like row 2 was always that spot. It's a tough spot for the middle block to help out for any of the cut shots. And it's just tough where you're really stuck having to pass with 3, and especially if you're a passing rotation or a passing lineup that is doing forward passers almost exclusively, like UCLA was the back half of the season, that puts a lot of stress and pressure there, and like would force our hands and a lot of other coaches' hands in terms of what rotation they're starting in order to ensure that you don't have that server coming in to that rotation too, for them. So I thought that ended up being a huge factor into those two big aces that we saw that really gave Long Beach the momentum there.
Yeah. Yep. Theo.
Yeah, I mean, I think these guys nailed it. I don't think there's ever been a question about whether Moni was deserving of Player of the Year, and I think what you like to see, especially in a match like this, is him be the player that everybody voted him to be. He was electric. There was a moment where he set an out of system ball. I think he was in zone 5 and sets it to the outside. Ball gets blocked. They cover it. He's transitioning towards the front row, and he hits the ball from behind the 10-foot line and just absolutely annihilates the ball. And that image of that happening during the tournament was like, I was like, wow. I mean, we've never seen anybody quite like him. And I think we're gonna maybe dive into that a little bit more later. But yeah, I mean, these guys hit it on the head. He kind of took over the match at certain points, and UCLA struggled. I thought some of the younger guys, on both rosters struggled a little bit. I thought Kellen Larson had a little bit of a tough night passing, kind of a little bit out of sync for him, especially as lights out as he's been most of the year. And then I thought, obviously Sean Kelly was a little bit of a non-factor offensively. Really struggled to get it going, and didn't set him a ton, but especially out of the back row, and specifically Brad was talking about this. They didn't really have much of a D-ball. Couldn't score from those 3 rotations, and I thought that Long Beach did a really great job of helping out on the middle in some of those rotations too, and getting multiple hands in front of McQuiggan. And there was a couple of pretty crucial moments that they stopped him and slowed him down and scored a couple of points in transition that I thought were pretty impressive. But Long Beach dominated from the service line. I thought the passing was a little bit even, kind of some bad passes here and there throughout the night. But I thought Long Beach hit the serves that they needed in crucial moments that kind of determined each and every one of the sets. So hats off to Alan Knipe and his crew. And I think they did obviously a tremendous job this year. And with Moni leaving, it'd be interesting to see what that team looks like, moving forward. Moni graduating, Nato Dickinson leaving, but
Sotos.
like one heck of a season. Yeah, no kidding. So, but
Yeah.
it's a match and some really, really high level volleyball, and to talk about kind of the level of NCAA play for and I say us because Moni for this year has been a part of us. For us to send a guy into Russia who's going to have a huge impact professionally right away is pretty darn sweet and pretty cool. So some great things happen in the world of volleyball.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I want to point out, because I think that in the backdrop of everything that happens is the coaching that it takes to coach a team. I'm not saying to, blow hot air at you guys, but it's quite the job. And looking what Alan and his crew had done. I mean, point 3 of the 2025 season, he loses Lazar Buchkov, the freshman middle of the year in the Big West. Then he has to adjust his lineup. He's got a couple new Libros. He's started out with Ford, Harmon, and Kellen Larson, switched up with Sebastian Rodriguez a little bit, and Peluso. I mean, he was really tweaking. Then he had another injury. Then he started putting in Isaiah Prout, and then Ben Braun. And then, everyone kind of expected Sotos to be in this year, but, ended up not being able to play at all. So he had to bring in another option. And look at all the tweaking had done from match 1 of the year and what the lineup was during the national championship match. And that wasn't what I'm sure Coach Knipe had expected this season, but he's able to tweak it enough. And it just goes to show the work that has to be done. You're having to consider things like injuries and, just wear and tear during the season, and, what chemistry is working in your lineups. And you guys have your work cut out for you, especially with the level of play that we've been seeing this year. Because it's definitely it's trending upward in a huge way. Seeing not only the pace of the ball, the strategy, the volley IQs of the athletes that are coming in, and what you guys are teaching them. It's pretty phenomenal that we get to see this happening pretty quickly, I'd say within the last like 4 or 5 years in the game. So um, that's the nerd side of me that's loving and seeing all this stuff that's going on. So, but shout out to, like you said, the Al and his crew, because they really had to do some tweaking. I don't think people realize how much tweaking they had to do. So, anything else on the national championship match? No? Well, I want to point out one of my favorite highlights. I just am a big fan of the Kong block. Zach Rama just dropping that right hand into that angle and seeing him clamp, and just the no selly celebration is always fun to watch. But I saw a clip, best 5 moments. Obviously, 4 of the 5 of them were Moni. So I definitely wanted to shout out to Zach Rama, because that was such a phenomenal block. Um, but with that, let's go into some of the top items. We're not going to hit them all, like I said earlier, but one of the ones that's on the forefront. Actually, should I let you guys start it off? Let's let you guys start off. Pick a topic, and we'll talk about it.
I'll kick it off with my topic, but USA Volleyball. You have Spera leaving to be CEO, leaving UCLA and leaving the men's side, and then Karch coming over to the men's side before LA 2028, and then even Soli, former men's player who's and has lots of men's volleyball ties, is leading the women's program. So I think just the continued presence that we're having within all of USA Volleyball is so awesome. I think especially for all of us and seeing Karch take over the men's team, I think that's such an awesome experience for those men who will get to compete in 2028. And so I think for me, that's a huge win for USA Volleyball and for men's volleyball and NCAA men's volleyball especially.
Brad, is Telefero also helping out with
It's
Sully?
the women for
Yes,
Sully.
he's with the women.
Yeah.
Well, I want to get you guys' thoughts on the influence, and with this new staff now at USA Volleyball, not only the coaching staff, but with Spera being the now CEO and president. What have you guys been seeing? Because all of you are pretty involved with what's happening in the NTDP, be it beach or indoor. But what could we expect to see, or your senses, in these first few months of his tenure?
I think the other thing you got to remember, and I don't know all the names affiliated, but John's also restructured a lot of other positions within USA Volleyball. So I think the lady's name that's right underneath him is Jamie. That position is actually fairly new. You got is it Steve Bishop he used to be in the Florida region. He's either the CFO or, like, I'm not sure. I gotta go back and look at his title. You've got Carla, who's been with USA Volleyball for over 30 years as like the logistics person. She's actually retiring.
Mhm.
And there's a couple other, like, I think Wade from First Point, there's a seat that he's in with USA Volleyball now. So there's a lot of shift and changes that are still kind of happening and been happening the past few months. So, and I think there's probably a lot going on in the back doors that we don't quite know about yet, because I think they're still kind of getting organized and shifting. I know they had a meeting, and from what I understand, there were 200 or 300 boys coaches and directors that were present with John and some other board members, which was a Zoom meeting, which was fantastic. And so I think they've got some things in the hopper that they're trying to figure out. We had a summit meeting at the NCAs where, Jamie was there, Doug Beal was there. Jamie's from the AVCA, the CEO of the AVCA. John Spera was there. Doug Beal was there. There were a handful of coaches in the room. There were a handful of commissioners. And there were 3 main talking points. One of them was, how do we get in front of kind of the things like GCU that happen and identify programs that are at risk? And, another one was, how do we kind of promote our sport and get the word out better than what we're doing? And then another topic had to do with D2 creating a championship, and what are some things that we can get in front of for D1 4 or 5 years down the road that puts them in a better spot. So they were 3 really good topic points that the AVCA and USA had kind of put together in this kind of summit meeting to kind of start generating ideas, and some good ideas kind of came out of that meeting. But I don't know. I think there's a lot going on that we probably don't know about, but there's also a lot of shift and changes, which I think are for the good. And yeah.
Yeah, and for the volleyball people, I think, I don't know, and maybe I'm wrong here, Dan, Theo, you guys probably know better, but it feels like there's a lot going on in terms of, like, we have the senior team in VNL, then we're going to have some U23 representation, and kind of a different group. U21, U19 just feels like a little bit more than normal.
Yeah, we're trying to get a
Exciting.
U17 off the ground, which I think would be fantastic because one of the things we're always behind is the development from the younger age for us. And so at least certainly on the boys side.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I think that's
I think
something
a
that's
big part of that, Brad, a lot of the older guys from the senior team decided to take the first year of the quad off, and specifically the summertime. And for those that don't know, that they spend all year essentially playing professionally overseas, and then the summertime is what they donate to USA Volleyball. And for them to get a break, like that's kind of the time to do it, right? The overseas trip pays the bills, and but by taking that first year of the quad off, it opens up some opportunities, and really in preparation for 28 gives Karch the opportunity to get some other guys in the gym and see them in potentially some more structured situations, potentially some more tournament situations, and see how they work out, right? I think the biggest challenge that Karch has, especially moving forward, is which direction are we headed? And are you going to stick with the same guys that have kind of been there, and are they still going to have the juice to go, three summers from now? Or do you starting to work in some of these younger guys and dedicate a little bit of time to them, and by 28 maybe they're in a position to compete. So I think that's going to be interesting. But back to kind of the John Speraw piece, I think he's the perfect guy for this job, and obviously only time will tell. But Dan hit it on the head in talking about the fact that they've got a lot of stuff in the works that we haven't seen yet. I know the shuffling of the club stuff has been a really, really big deal, and for those that maybe aren't aware, what essentially has happened with AAU and the sponsorship of really the highest level of boys club in the country. There used to be a time back in the day where everyone was competing in USAV, and the national championship or nationals, junior Olympics for boys, was kind of the big driver. It was a big moneymaker for USA Volleyball, and was kind of the pinnacle of where you'd want to compete. And today it's AAUs and it's SoCal Cup, and there's been a lot of changes in terms of the Southern California volleyball region, the Northern California volleyball region. And I know that John has been working pretty closely with them, and trying to come up with some new ideas and potentially relocating some of the major tournaments and making it so that both worlds can coexist, so that AAU can be a thing, but that USAV can still have a lot of value too. And I think, Dan, you were alluding to it, but potentially having some of those tournaments be opportunities for teams to represent USA. So if your club team wins one of the bid tournaments or one of the major tournaments, potentially now going on and getting a chance to compete in world championships or the world games or whatever it may be. But yeah, I think John's the right guy, man. He understands this as well or better than anybody around, and to see some of the moves that he's talking about, some of the vision that he has, I mean, I think it's just fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I know that they are, like, one of the priorities is to increase the visibility of men's volleyball, boys volleyball in the nation. And I've actually been in conversation about one of the individuals that's spearheading that effort, not as a USA Volleyball organization, but in support of USA Volleyball. It's still in the making, and just providing some guidance, so to speak, from a promotion standpoint, but we're still developing and getting content for them to get a package out there to really start promoting the men's and boys side of things. So I'm looking forward to what they put out, because um, I think the people that are involved are entertainment type people in Hollywood and professional athletics, which is a great connection for SPRA and USA Volleyball. So they have people at the highest levels in other sports and in the entertainment industry helping out with this. So
One of the ideas that we brought up that shot around the room a little bit is like, and you know this, Rob, we've got a lot of young, like Joe McCurdy and Sally Ding, and we've got a lot of young, talented kids who are trying to make portfolios and make their mark, and they're promoting and they're pushing the game. And kind of maybe tying in what you talked about a little bit, but at the same time between AVCA and USA, kind of getting somebody to kind of lead a team of like 8 to 10 individuals that are up and coming like that they would meet like once a week, and they would talk about ideas and content to push, and maybe create a new handle. We can't get NCAA men's volleyball to do anything, but that this handle be a hybrid between ABC and USA that, tells all the stories and pushes the content out to all these programs. And whether we're talking about players playing overseas or players with high accolades or just interviews or things like that. So it was a good idea that hopefully I think Jamie at the ABC and John are going to kind of put some legs on, and maybe that's in correspondence with what you're talking about a little bit, but it's certainly something that's needed because we're not telling the story. We can sit there and complain about the NCAA all day long, but that's not going to change. We have to find a different venue and avenue to kind of tell our story and tell it as a group. So
That is a great brainstorm. I'm going to write that down because I'm going to start directing people towards my contact now. Anything else on the topic of USA men's volleyball? And all good there. Let's go. So Brad got the first one. Who wants to jump on the next topic?
I think we could jump right into the media one, and specifically the great explosion of digital content, kind of what Dan was kind of finishing with there. Because I think there's just a lot of love that needs to go out to all the people who have been working incredibly hard. I think one, to make a name for themselves, but because they just love this game. And I know, Rob, you had listed a few, but I guarantee we're going to end up missing a couple. But
Oh yeah.
The content has been incredible, front to back. And I think that there's a lot of important facets about volleyball that I think the world has yet to see. And these content creators have really made that the story able to be told. And for us as coaches, like we're so deep in this. We're at the matches. We're studying video. We have access to unlimited amounts of film. But across the country, there are tons and tons of matches, and especially in my time, right? Like a lot of matches maybe weren't even recorded, or if they were, maybe they were put in place where they were stored on a USB drive, where you had some really, really high level talent and some really high level matches being played and just not really spoken about, talking about through legends and, and coaches exchanging stories and stuff, and seeing some of these videos and some of these clips that Nikoba is able to get, and Sally and just some of these incredible photographers videographers who are down on the floor and getting the angles that it really takes to shoot this game and see it in a highlight. It's just really, really cool for me as a volleyball fan. Like, forget the coaching side. As a volleyball fan, it's so cool to get on Instagram and see some of the stuff that these people are producing, and just so incredibly grateful to see all of the people that are willing to do it.
Yeah.
I think you need to, you got to say all these: the volleyball recap, the VBO report, Set the Bic, Set the Pipe podcast. You got Houlihan, Ariel, and Matt. You've got MC Vernts. You got Volleyball Coverage Channel, Rob St. Clair. Rob, you. You got HD Volleyball, Josh. Like, I don't know. We got to Set the Bic. All these groups are doing great stuff. I just, like you said, Theo, there's probably a bunch we're missing, but
for sure there is.
Yeah. So
off the block, I forgot to type in there.
So. Vinny, the OG, Vinny Lopes. Yeah, you gotta have him in there. Middlehitter.com, which Kevin Pratt took over, which is fantastic. So
yeah, Kevin Pratt. In all of his media stuff that he's been producing. he's doing he does a poll every single week with Off the Block, and oh man, it's just the list goes on and on. I know we're gonna forget someone. That's the part that bums me out a little bit, but just really appreciative.
Yeah, I think one of the coolest things is and not necessarily intentionally, but there's so much and going on social media around men's volleyball and creating buzz and building it up. Like, heck, even this year, I've never done it before, but I went totally off the grid, LeBron James style, and just didn't have the bandwidth for it because there was so much going on, which is pretty sweet, and ended up working out really, really well for you look around at attendance. I think most schools are continuing to beat their attendance year after year, and I think this was another consistent effort of that throughout. So I think all of the media support, from everyone we forgot and the people we got and everyone in between, and the individual schools' Instagrams and Twitters, and like it's paying off in terms of more people are engaging and invested in men's volleyball and coming out to the matches and supporting the teams in that way.
Why I
Yeah.
don't worry about NCAA.com anymore or wasting any energy on it, Rob, because in all reality, we can do our own thing. We have all these great resources, so you don't need them. So
Yeah. Well, it's an interesting point you bring. Even just from an Instagram standpoint, NCAA MVB grew 10,000 followers just this season since January,
yeah,
which is pretty amazing. And then if you look at volleyball, vbmagazine.com, even though they aren't doing a daily um, distribution of information or putting content up, that grew by about 5,000. And it was mainly men's content that they were putting up on VB Magazine or the Instagram handle. So there definitely is a lot of growth.
you got 900 square feet, which is
Lee's thing, yeah.
yeah, yeah. You've got Larry Hamill. He had his piece that he started doing. All volleyball from Larry Hamill was another piece, and so yeah.
Yeah, and then even I got a shout out Around the Block Volleyball. I don't know them, but one of the guys on it is a student at UCSD as well. So it's pretty sweet.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. You know, uh, one of the new faces this year who's actually, and I always say because I've been able to work with him quite a bit, is Joe McCurdy, and he's been. I mean, he flew out to Hawaii, I think, on his own dime, flew up to Columbus on his own dime, and just started covering the game. And the only reason I don't think he's posting this week is because he graduated from Tulsa, like the last few days, and has to move out of the dorms or wherever he's at. So, but he had some really good content, just a great creator, and really follows the game. And actually, is it Volley Station? That the other, like, that's Volleymetrics ish. Well,
College Station's one of them. AI or what's the other one? That Ball Time is the other one too.
Yeah. Well, he knows Volley Station, so he's a nerd at heart. He knows the stats, but he's only been on the women's side, and it was, because of his dad being a BYU men's volleyball fan, got into following men's, and he really jumped into it this year. So I'm excited to see the content that he's been creating all this year, and I'm looking forward to what he does here in the future. Um, but yeah, Josh Nakoba, uh, if he had a jersey or some kind of team gear from every place he went, I think he'd have like 2/3 of the NCAA Division 1, 2 teams, because I feel like he's everywhere. But he does great content, and we're only highlighting.
He's graduating too from USC.
That's right. He did just graduate from SC last
he
week. So,
graduated as well.
but he does everything, and he's actually been asked to go to do some beach volleyball, volleyball world stuff. So that's the beach side and indoor side of things. So, like, and um, with Matt Houlihan and Ariel, who does more of the club stuff, but Matt's been doing some really good stuff. Even, some of it's not very family friendly, but it's hilarious nonetheless. So
It's so good. It is so good.
And VB Yellow Report. I mean, there are guys that are putting good content out there. I don't know how they're able to track all the information, but it's not put out there like in a common place like you can see on the women's side. But the fact that you're doing this has been a great source of information for me to get ready weekly for podcasts and get ready to do broadcasts for UCI and other matches I've been working. So all the efforts are appreciated. And I love seeing people come up to you, hear about people coming up to you guys saying thanks for the podcast. I mean, it's everywhere we go now, even on the beach. Like, oh, we listen to your indoor one. I'm like, well, you got a beach one too, but they appreciate all the information, all the time you guys put in, and you guys give such great insight. So, but yeah, there definitely was a huge explosion this last year. And Dan, that's an excellent point. We don't need to rely on another organization. I think there's plenty of content creators who can carry the torch. And does it suck that it's not being supported at, like certain other sports or volleyball disciplines? Yeah, but we still have the content out there, and that's not going to stop. So, with that, is there anything else?
I got to mention Sally Dang, who's at Northwestern. Her tag is Sal's Flicks, but she's been doing some really high level stuff, and she works with Nakoba, I think, as well. But yeah, she's a Chicago person, does a ton of stuff at Lewis, does a ton of stuff at Loyola, and She made her way to Hawaii and was at some of the Hawaii stuff, and she's just doing a fantastic job.
Well, if we're done talking about, I want to end on one hilarious post that came out this week by Seth the Big. It was the all mustache team.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
Bro snubbed Jared Anderson at GCU and Moses Wagner from Stanford. That's all I'm going to say. But Jacob Riley was a solid pick because, as I commented on there, that was porn star status. That what Jacob Riley has. But I mean, that's the kind of engagement. It's hilarious, and we're looking forward to more. I think they're asking for an all bearded team. I'm saying all bearded coach team, and right now Theo and Dan would easily be up there. Brad, not so much, but
Brad, after you have a kid, you'll be able to do it too, man.
That's not true. Sorry, Brad. Don't let him.
I don't see it happening.
I had 2 kids and it didn't happen to me. So
honestly, Theo's going the opposite direction, Brad. So I don't know what you're talking about.
All right. Next topic, Dan, you get to choose it.
Oh, I get to choose it, huh? Well, let's talk about, I don't know, like program drop. You got GCU, you got St. Francis to D3. We're all waiting on the NCAA roster limits and rulings. It all kind of plays into, that topic. I think there's a piece where, like, I told you I brought it up as a summit point. It's like, how do we get kind of in front of this, or how do we tell our story better? And I thought one of the good things we talked about is there's all these great bullet points about like high school growth. There's, I think, 28 states that are now sponsoring it, which is huge. There's more coming on board. How many D3 programs there is? We're almost pushing 140, which if you look over the past 10 years where that growth is, the growth at Division II, and even the addition of a mid-major D1 conference in the NEC, and where the growth has been even on the Division I side. And so instead of kind of, dwelling on the things that are happening, like putting all these bullet points together and then sending these bullet points and this info out to the influencers on these campuses, like a Northridge, or to Northridge's AD, so they see like, hey, I don't want to cut men's volleyball because it's on the up and coming growth side. And so, and that coming from either John at USA, or like getting to those people in their hands about all the great things that are happening in men's volleyball. And hopefully that can, the St. Francis is a little different because it's a whole department. But I think the GCU each year, I actually don't think that AD knew. I think that AD, and this is from being what I've been told, was like, well, they made the Final Four, but they were only on NCAA.com. Well, did you know we made a deal that this year that all games are on ESPN Plus and then ESPN2 in the finals, that some of those things are moving? And my guess is no, she didn't know that. My guess is no, she didn't know the state growth. My guess is she didn't know everything that's going on because she just had a snapshot and wasn't really doing research. So I think we have to do a good job of putting all this information in front of the administrators and the influencers and the ones that write the checks at these programs, so they see kind of where men's volleyball is headed. So
is there not like a like who I guess gathers all this information? I mean, besides Wikipedia, obviously.
Well, I think First Point has done a great job. So I think Wade was in this meeting, and it's kind of like they have a lot of that info. So I think you just need a person to kind of take, hey, I'm going to take all this info, and they use it probably when they have combos about conferences adding men's volleyball, or like, but instead of looking at it like just from a growth perspective, look at it from a sustainability perspective and get it in front of the people on these campuses that matter. So that's what we're talking about. We're like, the data's there. So we just need to shift gears and kind of, hey, how do we put it in front of the people that maybe it's got to get my ADs happen. We don't think anything's going to happen at Lewis, but then all of a sudden he sees this information and it just puts us in a better spot too.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic point. And I've said this in the past, but I think one of my biggest fears is less of the smaller schools. Obviously, the enrollment drivers, I think, love men's volleyball, and it's been a blessing for them. And even I think the mid-major, D1 see the value because most of their programs don't compete on a national stage. I think the ones that scare me the most are the GCUs, and specifically programs that are trying their absolute best from a financial perspective to get on this national stage with basketball. And I mean, really, it's basketball or it's football or it's both for a lot of these schools. And the ones that really feel like they're on the bubble or on the cuff and they just need a couple more opportunities and they can get there, Those are the schools that just don't, they have a really lazy approach, if you ask me, in how they go about trying to figure out how to get there. Because you don't need to cut sports, and you definitely do not need to cut a sport like men's volleyball, who arguably has been probably running on one of the cheapest dimes of most Olympic sports, and seeing a lot of national success across the board. So yeah, it's a, I think St. Francis's approach to move to D3 is one that is a little bit more, as much as many of us are not going to like it, I think it's at least a respectable move, in the sense that they're not looking to cut sports. The GCU move was just devastating. And Dan, I love your idea of getting this stuff in front of athletic directors and making sure that people understand this stuff grows from the bottom up, and the roots for men's volleyball is as well established as it's ever been. And there's more young boys playing this game than ever before, which only leads to a better top. But you got to have programs, you have opportunities for these young men to play.
Yeah. Yep. Brad, anything to add on?
No, these guys nailed it. Just rallying around the success we've had and promoting that. Because I think everyone who would listen to this podcast, everyone who's watched the men's volleyball game, and it speaks for itself when you see it in person and you get to know these teams, these programs, these players. It's an amazing product, and how can we continue being better as a collective, not worrying about outside forces or getting help from other people, and taking the promotion of ourselves upon ourselves.
Yeah. Well, I will only add that. So we were talking about digital content creators. I'll put it out to you. I will, if you want to create a graphic with those metrics on there, the growth of the game as well as sustainability, reach out to me, DM me at the Rob on the Mic on Instagram, or email me, rob@robonthemic.com. Or you can always contact First Point Foundation. If you're not familiar what First Point is, they basically lobby for the support and growth of men's volleyball. Wade Gerard is leading up. He's got a board of people that are helping him out, but you know what? We need people to jump in and just do it. Grab the reins and get that out there. I will create a graphic, but people know I'm not a very artistic person when it comes to visual stuff. So
Unless
I will
it's putting ketchup on a hot dog.
Exactly.
Hey, Jay's not on here. Why do you gotta stir the pot? You know what I mean?
So yeah, so that was any content creators, I'd be willing to get the information for you. I know Wade, and I know that he'd love the opportunity to be able to get this out there. So, and we see it. I see the numbers. If you look at a world standpoint, volleyball is the 11th popular in the U.S., but 6th in the world. And if you look at how many people are following the game, I think at a lot of the D1-2 schools, I mean, men's volleyball is in the top 5 in attendance at schools.
It's the fastest growing sport right now in America for the men.
Yeah.
Dan, does anyone have better attendance than you on your campus?
We do well. We do good.
Yeah, you pack that place out. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And I've seen Brad's the same way. We had the #1 attendance on our campus. I mean, people like men's volleyball. There's no question.
Yep.
All good calls. So that's out there. Content creators, reach out to me, or First Point Foundation, Wade Gerard. I'm sure we'd love to hook you up with that information and create a graphic. I'll keep posting over and over and over again. So, ready to move on to our next topic. This will be a big one, I have a feeling, because a lot of news, some big news came out this week, and it's regarding Moni Nikolov, signed in Russia for Lokomotiv Novosibirsk, I believe is how you say it. Big signing. 18-year-old getting a pretty solid deal to play one of the top teams in Russia. But I want to talk specifically about the Moni Effect. We talked about it last week. Wanted to put it back out there because it is one of the biggest news items of the year. So jump in.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start it. As a volleyball fan, as a coach, I mean, coaching against Moni was probably one of the greatest challenges in terms of what do you do? What do you do to stop that guy? And I think what's so exciting for me as a volleyball fan is to have him come over. And we've talked about him on the podcast all year, but I love what he's done for the game. And that's the Moni Effect piece, right? He's his own social media. I don't know what the numbers are, but watching it explode as people got to watch somebody who's doing things that this game hasn't seen ever. And I'm not afraid to say it. On the NCAA side, I don't think we've ever seen a setter anything like him. One of the things I described about his offense is he has the patience, the timing, and the ball contact of an elite pin hitter. Whether it's a high ball, a fast tempo, his ball contact is incredible as an attacker. And for someone to have that smooth of a natural ability in that position, I mean, he could obviously play on the pin if he wanted to, but then turn around and be as effective and as great as he is as a setter is just really, really impressive. And so, yeah, it's really cool. And to watch him go to Russia, what I think I'm so excited about is really to see what these next 3 to 4 years look like as he transitions to the professional circuit. I want to see how other teams scheme against him. I want to see what it looks like when he has to play against guys that are more his size than the NCAA is. But I think I'm just incredibly excited about his future. I mean, the dude is just a fantastic talent. He helped us kind of build this thing to the next level of men's volleyball. And yeah, it's been pretty cool to watch the Moni Effect for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's looking at it now is a lot different, like especially during the year, like you kind of have the competitor in you. So you're like kind of watching it and you're like, yep, like these are good plays. And like, the pieces that really stand out to me is just some of the things he was able to do at the net, whether it be as a blocker or utilizing his size, physicality, athleticism, and arm to add more dynamics to the offense they're running at Long Beach and trying to look and see, right? You're not always going to have someone as big or as smooth or as talented as him, but what are some of the pieces in terms of his game, in terms of how he's hitting his serve, in terms of how he's taking the ball as a setter, in terms of what he's doing as a blocker, that we can take and implement to raise our level of play at San Diego, or our level of play overall. And I think, you see it in little bits, like in his serve, like he has a 6-step approach within his serve, and you watch, he probably foot faulted more than most players do in a season, and like maybe like 6 or 7, but he's generating a lot of that pace. When you talk about those 80-mile-per-hour serves, a lot of that comes from using those little steps to be generated, and I think, obviously there's a ton of off the court stuff, but I really look at the on the court stuff and his volleyball IQ, his volleyball knowledge, and how he communicated that so well with his teammates, whether it be in the matches with us or watching him play in some of the other matches. It was a lot of volleyball IQ, awareness, and communication with his teammates that really stood out to me.
Yeah. Yep. All valid points. Great points. Dan.
The other thing I throw in there is just his competitiveness, like uber competitive, like elite level competitive, along with his elite level skill. And I don't know that we see that at college all the time. So like we'll see guys that are pretty skilled or guys that are pretty competitive, but at the level that you watch him, if a guy doesn't do something, he's letting them know. At the same time, if a guy's doing something well, he lets them know. Like he's like, that's a status that none of us right now can recreate consistently with our guys in the gym. We might have a few, but I mean, it's a pretty special piece. And it's a piece that I think goes along with him winning a national championship. Like his brother was great, phenomenal, but I think Moni was just even better. And then the fact that he touched the ball every other time, if not every time, just he made so much more of an impact. And he goes back and he wins a game because he's serving. He might have won a game and a half in the national championship because of how he broke it up with his serving.
Yeah.
And that's at the final game of the year, when people were watching and it all matters. And so he's performing at that level when it's the most important. And so, and then engaging the crowd, engaging the fans, engaging his teammates. Like pretty unique talent that we're probably going to see for many years to come at the Olympic level, doing some great things for Bulgaria. And that Bulgaria team's going to be good. You wait in the LA Olympics. I'd be shocked if they're not making some noise with some of the pieces that they've got in front of them and the ability to see what they can go do at the next level. So,
And for you guys, pop quiz, who was the last F-bomb post-match interview for the NCAA?
Hammerman, baby.
Yeah, ammo, baby.
I'm sure he'd rather have forgotten that, but him coaching his women's program now, or assistant coach in his women's program, and we just rehashed it. But that's all right. We can just remember Moni now. Dan, what you don't mention, he was 18 years old, being the leader on that team with fourth and fifth years. That's what's mind blowing. That his play and his leadership were that well respected and appreciated by older players on that court. I think Kevin Barnett on the broadcast so appropriately referred to him as a unicorn. And we had a unicorn in NCAA men's volleyball in 2025. I'd like to argue there were two unicorns, but because I'm a homer, Hilariano. But still, Moni, incredible stuff. And
well, the thing that on the reverse side of that, and I think Theo might have said, but like this propped it up him as well. By coming here and playing for a year, his market for him exploded. He could have not come and he could have been in Europe and he'd have been phenomenal, but he just put himself in the whole American market at the same time. So I think that just jumps him up another piece on top of winning a national championship. And so,
well, in the second he landed home, they had an interview set up for him. I mean, like they've been watching all of this content that he's been able to accomplish. And again, shout outs to all our content creators because they're such a big part of that. But they gave him the footage, the notoriety that even for us that watch and follow European pro volleyball, you're not seeing it at that level. Like as good as and as much as men's volleyball is loved in Europe, they do not market it on social media the way that we're doing it here. And man, he got to take that stuff right home with him. And I guarantee it led to a higher paycheck. Like I guarantee you look at the scouts and the people who were looking into bringing him, if you have a large following, that puts butts in the seats and that makes a big impact. And we're starting to see that obviously in the major sports here in the United States, but I would imagine it's having an impact in Europe and Russia as well.
It'll be fascinating to see the amount of subscriptions for whatever the subscription service is for the Russian Professional Volleyball Federation, because I don't think it's on Volleyball World. I don't know where they stream it from.
It's on gambling channels.
But there will be some people in America getting their VPN so they could watch him due to that fandom that was generated.
Yeah, if you jump onto those Russian gambling sites, just be sure to not click on any of the ads, all right? I had to learn the hard way. It's on accident.
Sure, Rob. On accident. Got you. Glad your wife's not
on. So with that, shall we move on to another topic?
Yeah, I've got something to throw out there, Rob, that wasn't on the list.
All right.
And I didn't actually notice. It's funny. It's one of these things I didn't notice this all year. And I'm not exactly sure why, but it dawned on me today. I was looking at the AVCA final poll and the top 12 teams. Dan might not like this topic that much, but the top 12 teams, there is only one team that is not in either the Big West or the MPSF. And I cannot remember the last time it was like that. So the only team that's in there is Loyola. Every other school is from the Big West or the MPSF. And I think in years past, I was kind of scrolling through. Obviously, Princeton was in the mix there. Obviously, Ohio State, Penn State. Obviously, Lewis has been in the mix in that position many times. But yeah, kind of a little bit of a different year in terms of that, especially as we look at kind of the final poll, and I wanted to get your guys' takes on it.
Yeah. Are you sure you want? Polls are subjective. How about that?
Incredibly so.
So in my opinion, like there might be a couple teams after the 12 that I think deserve to be in front of the 12. So it is what it is in terms of how those polls were voted from that standpoint. And so, and we could go top 15, and there's 3 MIVA teams right there that are 13, 14, or 15. I believe. I'm not looking at it, but I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure that's right.
McKendree's 13, Ohio State 14, Lewis 15.
Yeah. So I just no. In my opinion, you have your top 5 was pretty good, and then there might be a separation with a couple others between 5 and 10, but I don't know. You could flip around some of those other schools by who's voting and where the records are and how they did and all that stuff from that standpoint. So, but kudos to you West Coast guys for this year of having that many teams in the top 12. I'll remember to point it out differently in years moving forward, just so you know.
I didn't mean it in that way, Dan.
Hey, I'm not saying you
just
did,
because I
but
thought it was
I'm sure
interesting.
it'll file it away.
That's funny because the topic I was going to bring up was how the MIVA got snubbed in the end of the year rankings.
So I would go along with that. Like, I'm at the same spot I was last year, and I was better than last year. So but that's just my opinion. Do you know what I mean? And so, you know, but I think, like you said, sometimes polls are a little subjective. So.
Yeah. Well, I'd only add that I love seeing Lincoln Memorial in there just because an IVA school, and they had a stellar season, and some quality athletes that would have loved to have seen come back west or farther south. I think, but they got the attention of the nation. Top 20.
It's got to be the best record not inside the top 15 ever.
Like one loss in the season.
How about top 10? Probably.
Yeah, 24-1 is what they
right.
finished.
Yeah, 24-1.
Guess if they would have beat Brad, they would have been okay.
Well, yeah, if they beat Brad, I think they're inside the top 10.
Hey, if I beat you and the kid doesn't go under, maybe I'm top 12. Do you know what I mean? So, like, how about that? So.
Yeah, if he didn't net, I agree.
Yeah. Like, your guy tripped him. What are you talking about? So, like,
uh-oh, here we go.
Seems like we have a new summer feature, Theo versus Dan.
Yeah. Well, don't worry, Brad. I'll find some. Maybe I'll throw something at you too. Do you know what I mean? So it'll be great. So.
Well, I mean, you bring up an interesting topic though. So, the final poll has Long Beach 1, UCLA 2, 3 Hawaii, 4 Pepperdine, 5 Irvine, and so forth. But Dan, you mentioned it's subjective, but I feel like this year you really had really good talent competing. So although teams didn't necessarily rise, didn't mean that these teams weren't that good. You know what I mean? There's just a lot of talent.
No, and I didn't mean that by subjective. I think the poll is pretty good. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think we're talking about like Irvine could be a couple in front of one or two of those teams possibly. Do you know what I mean? And so but the polls are always going to be like that. Like, it's a bunch of coaches that are voting, and they have value different things on the win scale. When you go compare RPIs, and you compare win-loss record, you compare home record, and you compare head-to-head, like, you got all these things, you know what I mean? And so, me and Brad didn't play against each other. So that's a harder evaluation to make. Me and Theo did, and so, so I think that's where polls become subjective, because it's just like, to a point, you look at the All-American list, it's the same thing. All those teams in the top 15 deserve to be in the top 15. There's probably a couple out that deserve to be in. All those All-Americans deserve to be All-Americans. Where somebody goes from a second team to a first team, or an honorable mention to a second team, becomes a little bit subjective on the criteria that's weighed in on what you're looking at and how the group that's looking at it votes.
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about. So I think, we had a phenomenal year of volleyball. Do you know what I mean? A lot of great teams, and there's ebbs and flows. We can go back to years where there's 2015, 1 and 2 or Lewis and Loyola, Theo. There you go. Do you know what I mean? And so, but I think
that's what I remember it. That's the way I remember it.
The Big West over the past, I would say, 4 or 5 years has certainly had a little bit of a stranglehold, and then you've had 2 or 3 MPSF teams that have certainly been at the top. And then I think the EVA and the MIVA have been a little bit behind that. They've had a team that has popped in around the top 5, 6, 7. Do you know what I mean? And but you go back years and it works in cycles. I remember.
To get
the non-West Coast team was never in it 20 years ago, except for Penn State or an occasional Ohio State. Do you know what I mean? And so now we've got what I think is more parity across the board, which is fantastic. A Lincoln Memorial that's 20-some-1, and so it's great.
Well, and to your point, this year, I think this is a rare thing to not have an EIVA team inside of the top 17. I can't remember the last time that was the case.
Yeah.
It may not stay that way. Do you know what I mean? So, but things happen like
Oh, it definitely won't stay that way. But I think it's just kind of one of those weird years.
Yeah. One of the players on Lincoln Memorial that we spoke about him a few times, Matt Gentry. But Dan, weren't you just beach NTTP with Gentry training?
He was not there. So yeah, I was with USA Beach, but it was the World University Trials competition, and so there were, gosh, I think 12 or 16 teams, and they competed to see who was going to qualify for World University Games. And Gage and Basie and Thomas Hurst won that competition. So yeah,
Hurst is a former eater, by the way. I'm going to point
is
that
a
out.
current eater on your club team. He goes to school
Yes.
there, but he focuses in on beach. So,
Yeah. Well, the reason why I mentioned Gentry is because Evan Corey, another Lincoln Memorial alum, just due to some certain health situations with his partners, he's out 2 partners. He came on social media saying, "I'm in need of a partner. Any ideas?" I'm like, Matt Gentry, all LMU Beach team.
we don't have a long enough episode to get in my thoughts of beach and what's going on with the AVP league and all that stuff. And so that's a whole different topic of
Side
conversation.
episode. We'll do a Viral Volley Media podcast
I
on that.
totally agree. I'd love to have that conversation, Dan, because I got a lot of issues
Yeah.
too.
Hey, I've only got a few minutes. Let's jump on another topic if we're going to do.
I got one that's
Go for it.
Nickie Sanlin, Coach of the Year. And I think it's really been kind of obviously this year was amazing, and I believe the best one in McKendree history. I could be off there.
No, you are right.
And I like, obviously it was an amazing season. I also think it's more of a culmination of so much work and time she has put in to building that program up, from the athletic department to the men's and women's side to specifically just the men's volleyball side. So I think that has been a very well-deserving award, and kind of was a really nice way of capping off their season, which was so strong, so effective, and really kind of really broke the mold of men's volleyball for the MIVA and for a lot of different coaching ranks.
Yeah. Nickie Sanlin, so first female coach of the year in the men's side, first Black female at that. If I mean, I don't have the history of it, but I imagine that's
you're
the
right.
case. As long as I've been tracking, there's been nobody else. So, and just a great result for McKendree University this year. I think they peaked out at 10 this year in the poll. But a solid group of people. And that, if you look at all the athletes she's coached, they've only said the most incredible things about her as a coach. And even you, as her colleagues, seeing her in the USA program coaching, nothing but mad respect for Nickie, and a wonderful personality for the game.
Yeah, I mean, she's such a great coach. And in the same year that we watched a female head coach win the national title on the women's side, to see Nickie rising to her success and really bringing McKendree to the national stage. I mean, obviously they've been a great team in the past, but this was a historic year for them, a historic year for her. And I think, to remind everybody, I mean, they traveled on the road early and had a ridiculously tough schedule. And Dan has echoed this many, many times, and something that I've learned from him, that sometimes those tough schedules that can be incredibly challenging can put you in a position to prepare you. And Nickie's no fool to this, and she's one heck of a coach. And watching her team compete and watching the camaraderie, I mean, you could see it. You could see it in her players. You could see it in her. There's an energy. It's really special, and it was pretty cool to watch for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I lots of great things about Nickie, and I mean, you can go on some of the social media, like historic season for them, second team All-American, all the accolades that the team kind of did, winning regular season for the first time. And I certainly would agree, an accumulation of growth and hard work that her and her coaches and all of her previous alumni have all put in to kind of continue to push that program up. And for people that need to know, like, she used to coach both men and women. And she's kind of went into a different role where she's oversees all volleyball now, but mainly coaches men, and also wears an administrative AD hat and has some other things that come along with that. And so, but she's certainly been able to focus in on the men, and you can kind of see the men reap the benefits from that as well this year. And all female staff, and not just the first female black coach, first black coach to win the award. I think that's the other piece to kind of throw in there. And I was fact checking myself, Theo, before I looked that up, but I looked it up all the recipients. But I mean, that's phenomenal in terms of that and what she's been doing and how she's doing it. And so, but nothing but love and compliments to her and the program and what they've achieved there. And, hopefully we can continue to push the narrative with that, because I think it's really important to get out and celebrate that as well.
And in a world of college athletics where if you're at a smaller D2 school, a lot of coaches are jumping ship or taking that next thing up. And I don't know this, but I would sure imagine that Nickie's had a lot of opportunities and a lot of options that have been very enticing for her coaching career. And for someone to stay loyal to McKendree and stay there for so long and be supported there in so many different roles and so many different aspects, to have that success is so awesome in the current landscape of the NCAA.
Yeah.
And I mean, some people may not. She was the AVCA diversity chair and on the board for 7-8 years. Like, there's some other hats that she's been wearing that she drives not only the growth of boys volleyball, but volleyball and a lot of different spectrums. And so important.
Well, let's not forget she's a mom.
Yeah, 2 kids, mom.
Someone who's a damn good parent. I mean, which I could tell you that's a tough task to, especially all the years that she was in season all year long.
You're scare Brad, Theo. Tone it down a little bit. Brad's gonna like.
Oh, I mean, it's one of the greatest roles that you can have. There's a lot of purpose that comes from it, and but I think it's an incredibly challenging thing to be good at both, being a great parent and being a great coach, and because coaching doesn't stop. So you gotta find boundaries, and you gotta find ways to be a good parent. And watching Nickie in both roles, she's been just absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah. I know we are limited on time. We've actually gone over an hour here, but I wanted to end with some kind of parting thought type thing, and it's be hard. And I also wanted to do one quick thing to close out the 2025 season, but I'm going to leave it up to you guys. You choose either a what did we learn this year or a bold prediction for 2026. Or if you're feeling like you can do it quickly, do both, as it will run through all of you. So who feels like they got one in the hopper ready to fire? Ooh. Theo's thinking. Dan's thinking. Brad looks like
I got a fun one to buy some time. UC San Diego and Cal State Northridge will play 5 sets in 2026 of volleyball. There'll be another 5-set battle that ensues.
Let's keep it going, Brad.
There we go. That was the bold prediction.
Well, what's funny in the 5 times that we played both San Diego and Irvine, 4 out of 5 were 5-setters.
Yeah. Gotta love it.
Playing a lot of volleyball.
All right. Who's ready to throw down?
I think what did we learn piece is pretty interesting. I think that's an interesting topic. I like that.
I think what we learned, and if you hadn't already figured it out, is the impact foreign athletes can have on our game in a positive light. Okay, so like it is upping the level of our game because of the foreign athletes that are involved across the board, which makes our talent better and we see things. And so and on the flip side, turns in more global people to watch our game, which in turn promotes our game. So I think that's something, if you weren't aware of it, you should have learned this year from that standpoint. And you could say a little bit on Moni, but there's also, we could rattle off 10 other foreign players that are super talented that do that as well.
Yeah, I think that that's exactly where I was going with this, Dan. And I think it's interesting. I spent a little bit of time watching the Japanese league this past week, and Japan has done obviously a tremendous job over the last 10 years, maybe a little bit longer, just building their program, building it from a national perspective, but also building it on the professional side. And they allow 1 or 2 Americans, or technically it could be 1 or 2 players from around the world, but only they limit it to 2 roster spots for non-Japanese players. And I think it's really interesting because they've taken a lot of the really well-known TJ DeFalcos and brought them over to Japan and given them a space to compete, and it's helped lift their league, not just from a notoriety perspective, but the level of play and the level of volleyball, and I think that we've been able to accomplish something similar here in the NCAA. And there's a lot of countries that are doing some really, really great things at a young age. And if we're not able to do that, and obviously John Speraw is doing a great job of trying to build this thing from the bottom up, but Dan kind of hinted at this earlier, but we're getting our butts kicked on the national stage at the 16s, 17s, 18s age group. I mean, we're getting smoked. I don't know that we've won a world championship in the U19 yet. And there's a reason for that. A lot of these other countries are much more invested.
Never won one at the U21 yet.
Yeah, we catch up. So once our players get to the collegiate realm, we catch up, and the training gets to a level where we can start to compete in that space. But I think that to Dan's point, the bringing over these international players that are some of the top in the world, it's been beneficial for both. It's been beneficial for them, and we watched it in the Moni Effect and his ability to build his profile and build his media side of his career, but also help the NCAA and change what we see as a prototypical setter and what it looks like to be big and physical and athletic. That part has been really, really cool this season to watch it all play out. And I don't know, the last few years we've had a foreign player has been the player of the year, right? We've had Hilir Heno, and now we've had Moni Nikolov and
Jakob Tella.
I mean, so it's
Alex Nikolov.
What's that?
Alex Nikolov.
So it's been a while since an American.
I have a prediction too, by the way. You're going to see another program drop, or you're going to see a school drop to D3. It won't be the last one after the effect of this rule, no matter what the changes they're trying to make a little bit. I think you're going to see. Now, it doesn't mean we won't add programs, because I also think on the flip side, I think we're going to add a couple other programs, but I think you'll see another program hit. We're just hoping you can kind of mitigate that, but I think there's no way around it with the effects of what's going on in college athletics across the board. So
yeah, I think it'd be great to. I mean, yeah, I think a bold prediction is seeing another program and seeing another West Coast program, especially, would be ideal. But programs everywhere, and then I think the one thing in terms of what we learned a little bit different than the impact of the international athletes is the overall depth of men's volleyball. We touched on a little bit with the rankings is really, really strong. Where you have really any team 1 through 17 could beat anyone on any given night. And you saw that play out with some of the upsets we saw this year, and really kind of the whole base of men's volleyball, the level of play on a night in, night out basis continues to raise more and more and more. And I think that's something that we need to keep being proud of. And I only see that continuing and getting stronger with some of the changes upcoming in the future years. But I think overall, just the quality of volleyball, the quality of play, the quality of people within these programs continues to grow more and more and more.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, there's your parting thoughts and bold predictions for 2026. I wanted to end with the first ever CVW awards. Not a whole lot of thought went into it, but just to appreciate the guys on the screen along with Jay. But if AI Volumetrics was the person award, Brad Rothstrider gets that award this year. Throwing down some great information, analytics, stats, and able to put all that information together and spit it right out like Chat GPT. Brad, you're the man. Also, this was one of the toughest ones to decide on. The the Video Bombie of the Year award on CVW. I thought it was me, Float Surf Jesus, but no one can beat Ray jumping into the screen when Dan was in some kind of cabin or something. And then the first ever, and probably hopefully the only ever, Life is Better with Ketchup award obviously goes to Theo Edwards of CSUN, stirring a nationwide furor debate of, does ketchup go on hot dogs? Well, the people have spoken. 80% said yes, 20% said no, and those are all Chicagoans. So, and with that, Jay's not here, but Jay gets the NIL endorsement award because every time he's got something sponsoring his segments, every time he speaks, and he's got his billboard in the back of his office. But with that, I wanted to thank all of you for an outstanding year. It was so fun, as always, to really follow what's going on in the game and put a personality to what's going on actually on the court and giving us insight to what's happening throughout the NCAA, and with great fun and a lot of just great information as well. So I wanted to thank all of you for that, and appreciate so all the time and effort and the sacrifice. So I know you don't have to do this, but you've chosen to do this for the growth of the game. And I know that there are, gosh, I think we're surpassing 500,000 listens. And I got to get the official number. I don't want to embellish it too much, but I know that we've got some of the best listenership this year. And a lot of the compliments that we get are because of what you guys bring to the game. So I cannot thank you all enough. So, except for Jay. We'll get Jay later. So thank you, gentlemen.
We appreciate you, man. You've
Yeah,
done a tremendous job.
Oh, this just in. The guy on the mic award goes to Rob.
Well, appreciate all you guys. I'm hoping if some topics pop up in the summer, you'll be available. And I know Brad will probably be MIA because he's going to have his first child. Did you share the hardware? Boy, girl yet? I can't remember.
It'll be a boy. Yeah. Boy.
Oh, here we go. So we'll leave Brad alone. We'll jump on Dan, Theo, and Jay, unless, of course, Brad's got no sleep and just wants to talk nonsensibly. So, gentlemen, thank you again. And hopefully we can chat, maybe throw down an episode in the summer. So thank you for 2025. That's it for episode 282 of College Volleyball Weekly. Follow all the people, content creators. They're doing VNL, following our college players because we have a young VNL team, which we could have talked about. But these are guys that you just saw this last season, or recent seasons, now representing the United States. So, again, enjoy the rest of your day, and thanks again, guys.
Thanks for listening to College Volleyball Weekly. Be sure to follow Rob Aspero at the Rob on the Mic on Instagram and at Rob on the Mic on Twitter.